I have, as of recording this video, spent over 160 hours in Suicide Squad, made it into the top 500 on the global leaderboard in both Finite Crisis preseason and Season 1, and I'm currently pushing Mastery Level 110 incursions. I've also done all of these things without any type of guide and with builds I crafted myself. As such, I understand the vast majority of the game and its many systems to the furthest extent any player can reasonably be expected to. I say all of this not to brag or to pat myself on the back, but to establish for both the audience and hopefully any Rocksteady devs that may be watching, that I have experienced Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League thoroughly and at the highest levels of play. This video is going to be both a follow-up to my rather comprehensive defense of the game, which you can find on screen now and in the description, as well as a summary of my thoughts and feelings regarding the current state of the game, the community notes post made by Mr. Soldier Man, and the most recent developer update. So, was I wrong about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League? Let's find out. Unfortunately, I once again have to open this video with a similar but no less severe issue, and that's the PC performance. While overall stability and connectivity seems to have improved for most, for reasons unknown, the PC performance of the game has taken a massive hit following the release of Season 1. And even on PS5, where I've only run into minor bugs, the performance does struggle at high mastery levels in both incursions and killing time as the number of effects and enemies on screen chip away at the FPS. However, I will note that the dip in performance hasn't noticeably impacted my experience or gameplay, and is only particularly bad when ragdolling too many enemies, which I find entertaining and do on purpose with a combination of grenades and Joker's traversal attack. I won't beat a dead horse, since I know that as players we want everyone to be able to play the game and have it run reasonably well, and I likewise know that the devs are no doubt aware of these issues and working on getting them fixed as fast as they can. Like I said, it's just an unfortunate situation, but bitching about it isn't going to get it fixed any sooner. Now, I want to cover a couple of my major points from the previous video. On the topic of the story, I still very much enjoy it, but like many players, I would appreciate at least a couple more cutscenes and narrative moments in the following episodes and seasons. I'm hopeful that Joker being a big part of the Episode 1 content means they've saved more squad story moments and plot in Episode 2, but we'll have to wait and see. As for the current status of the Justice League, well, that hasn't technically changed, but it is now both widely accepted within the game's community and further backed up by recent leaks that they are alive and were always intended to be. I'll be upfront and say that my thumbnail for the last video was blatant clickbait when I published it, but in an ironic twist, it's now just a fact. Most reviews from release didn't mention the many signs that the Justice League is alive, and I don't know if it's more embarrassing to have intentionally misled people or to have been duped by the writing in a superhero video game, but in either case, I told you so. As for the build crafting, Rocksteady continued to demonstrate a remarkably strong grasp of how to deliver incredible thematic gear with a variety of interesting and powerful effects that combined in stupidly satisfying ways. And once again, I cannot praise the developers enough for their brilliantly implemented gear acquisition and scaling systems. For those not aware, achieving any semblance of meaningful gear progression in an MMO or looter without the use of an obtrusive and oftentimes gate-kept gear score or item level is incredibly challenging and rarely successful. The fact that at max level there are only regular pieces as well as master variants of them, and that this system is functional, is a real achievement in game design that absolutely must be acknowledged. There are few games in the MMO and looter genres that would not benefit from a thorough study of Suicide Squad's gear and loot systems. I can't really say too much more without getting into my thoughts on Season 1, the community notes, or the developer update, so I think it's time we do just that. Starting with my overall thoughts on Season 1, not including the unfortunate PC situation, I'm pretty happy with most of what we got, but I'll discuss my thoughts on how much content has been added in a bit. Before we get to that though, I'm going to go over the good things I have to say because frankly, I think they matter more. For starters, the star of the show and the biggest point of excitement for Season 1, Joker. Now I'm not going to pretend to be nuanced here because I just can't. I fucking love this character. I love how he looks, I love his attitude, his voiceover, and the writing for pretty much every one of his lines. But more importantly than all of that, I absolutely love how he plays. While the rest of the cast are truly great and wonderfully designed, at least for me in the glass cannon style I like to play, Joker is on a whole other level. There are few characters in any game, looter shooter, live service or otherwise, that are this much fun to play. I mean it when I say I would pay $70 tomorrow for a full-length single-player game featuring this character and his moveset. Hell, they could set it on his Earth before Brainiac's invasion and I'd be so down. This character, more than anything, has convinced me that people just want to dislike this game more than they want to even give it the chance to be good, because he is so brilliantly designed and so much fun to play. I genuinely question how someone could claim this game was made by anything less than some of the best and brightest developers in the industry. It's honestly a shame to see all the negativity still surrounding this game when there are so many fun and considerate design choices apparent throughout, and Joker is no exception. I won't go into his character design too much, but suffice it to say, this is my favorite Joker other than Mark Hamill's from Batman the Animated Series, and I sincerely hope more artists and writers take the character in this direction. As for the new gear, it's likewise a ton of fun to play with and opened up a ton of interesting build options as I mentioned earlier. But this is where I think now it's time to address the elephant in the room: the amount of content. Now, I stand by what I said in my previous video. I don't really care that there's not a lot of mission variety, because missions are just an excuse to engage with the incredible combat and traversal. But I won't pretend that I don't see where everyone else is coming from. Let me be clear, I also think this game needs more content. I desperately want more content. But if that isn't a testament to the quality of what they've made, then I don't know what is. Looking at Season 1, we've got 6 new incursions set on 6 new map layouts, a much improved version of killing time that is now actually fun, and by far the best boss fight to date. While I know the boss fights aren't great in general, this was a big step up and really goes to show that with some tension and difficulty added, even the original fights could have been pretty good. I was actually surprised by just how good the Green Lantern version of Brainiac felt to fight, seeing as the very similar fight from the main story was as lackluster as all the rest. My big complaints would be that he appears immune to afflictions and his health scales up way too high with increasing mastery levels, but I do think it's a well-designed fight overall. So, we got Joker, 6 new incursions, and 2 reworked activities which are much improved over last season. There's also decent reasons to go back to Finite Crisis, such as getting the notorious pieces for Joker. I agree that on the whole, it's not a lot, and I'll level with you and say it's probably not enough. But it's also basically triple what we had before, and that to me indicates Rocksteady have made delivering more and varied content a priority. But having said all that, I now address this to the developers at Rocksteady directly. I love this game. You guys have demonstrated an understanding and mastery of some of this genre's most complicated systems. So please hear me when I say that we need variety and we need it ASAP. The fact of the matter is that without some form of substantial endgame PvE challenge that requires a coordinated team of skilled players, these games just do not tend to survive. And the few that do generally end up coming around to this in their sequels and updates. There's a reason people lose their minds at the mention of a raid. Because 20 years ago, World of Warcraft showed the wider world what cooperative gaming could really look like, and it looked like a team standing side by side before a giant raid boss. If the rumors about a PvP mode being just around the corner are true, that's great, and it will definitely help. But it won't solve the one issue that so many of these games never solve. The one reason people have stuck with the uneven experience that Destiny has been for a decade is because it got raids into the hands of casual FPS fans and console gamers, which makes them really the only game to successfully accomplish such a task. The foundation of this game and its core mechanics are innovative, brilliantly executed, and a ton of fun. Now we just need content that asks us to push those systems and our skills to the limit. I'm no game dev, and I'll never pretend to be, but if you're working on raid-like content, consider if it can be completed without communication and a coordinated effort, because if history is any indicator, the answer has to be a resounding no. Moving on, I'll go over the community notes posted by Mr. Soldierman on Twitter because they cover many of the points I agree and disagree with. I'll put the post on screen as I address the various points made and try to highlight them. Once again, I'll be skipping discussion of bugs and performance because the devs are no doubt doing what they can to fix problems, and the people fixing the game are unlikely to be the same people prepping new content. So, let's go through this in order. Now, these first 3 notes I completely agree with, as they are simply nice quality of life improvements that I think we can all get behind given how much loot the game generously throws at us. Now here's my first minor point of disagreement, the idea that the Battle Pass rewards are earned too slowly. With the Battle Pass lasting through both episodes of Season 1, and myself already being almost halfway through it, I feel like it was reasonably well paced given how long it will be before we get the next one. Having said that, this is the first of a few issues mentioned in the community notes that was almost immediately addressed in the recent developer update. The developers seem to agree and will be doubling the amount of Battle Pass points awarded per incursion. And now here we have my first major point of contention. I almost completely disagree with this, and I'm going to explain why. Now, first, I do agree that enemies and brutes in particular at the higher mastery levels, around 60 and above, just start to become annoyingly spongy in a way that is more frustration than challenge. However, I completely disagree with the idea that enemies do too much damage. This game has 2 primary means of skill expression, traversal and decision making. Hitting enemies with your weapons and abilities is almost effortless, but proper target selection and fluid high-speed traversal require practice and focus. The 2 primary means of overcoming challenge in this game are via improving your traversal and target selection, as well as developing and adapting your build. If your build is functional, the only tests of skill that exist in the gameplay are your ability to rapidly make decisions based on your moment-to-moment status, and maintaining enough momentum so as to not ever get hit by snipers and deadly attacks. This is not in any way unreasonable. Yes, you can get 2-shot from basically level 40 onward, but that's because at that point you should either be comfortable with never getting hit or have built in such a way that you can tank the damage. In case there's any confusion, the developers said the same thing in simpler terms in their update, but the gist is this: skill issue. Now, if you're really struggling, I'll give you a hint. Grab the Mad Hatter melee and tell me how long you can stand in a horde of enemies spamming melee before you die. That should pretty effectively demonstrate there are ways to be tanky if you don't like playing a glass cannon. Anyway, the only changes I'd like to see to incursion scaling would be further tuning of enemy health and resistances to make them less spongy at the highest levels. Right now, I'm not confident that there are more than a couple of specific builds capable of killing brutes past mastery level 100. Oh, and I'd obviously like a fix to whatever jank has made vehicles near impossible to kill. On to weapon damage. I also disagree with this, but I do think more diversity in firearm builds would be welcome. Perhaps more firearm-specific effects could be added to gear, since if you're using firearms for damage, then you almost definitely need to be doing a crit build right now. Having said that, even my 4 Affliction Grenade Joker build does pretty hefty damage with its primary firearm. And as for the final few points about build diversity and contradictory mutator/effects, I don't necessarily agree that build diversity was limited, but I do think it could have felt that way because of the real issue with many of these concerns: communication. My only major criticism of Rocksteady right now would be the lack of communication. I think that if the team were more accessible to those of us who love this game and are trying to deliver meaningful feedback, then it would feel a lot better for us as players and as a community. Right now, it kind of feels like we have to take it from all the haters while just kind of hoping we aren't crazy for seeing something special here. I know that some of you are watching, and I think it'd mean a lot to those of us who believe in what you've built if we could at least have a more open line of communication to you. It doesn't have to be me, though I'd kill for a serious interview when you guys aren't putting out fires around the office, as there are much larger creators who have likewise demonstrated respect for you in this game. But I really think having that dialogue open would make a big difference. I'm well aware of the toxicity faced by community managers on the regular, and even more now in the face of all the grifter harassment, but if we are going to change the narrative, it starts by establishing some sort of respect and trust between the team and those of us who are sincerely committed to delivering meaningful and respectful feedback. So, with all of that out of the way, was I wrong about Suicide Squad?
Nope-a-reno.
Of course not. That's the trick of it. When you talk about art with nuance and respect, it's a lot harder to be wrong than right. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ding the little bell if you want to be notified of my next video. I also do variety game streaming 5 days a week starting at 12 PM Pacific Standard Time, which is where I capture my gameplay footage used in these videos and play through the games covered on this channel. Link to my Twitch channel, Discord, and more in the description. Thanks again, and see you next time.